All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Janet, you were going to do this.
That's okay.
I'm Amy Lang with Birds and Bees and Kids, and this is my pal, Janet Allison.
I'm Janet Allison. I'm the founder of Boys Alive and also the co-host of the On Boys Parenting podcast. I always like to say right up front that I raised daughters. I didn't raise sons. I'm about to be a grandma and I'm so excited for that. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl, so stay tuned for that. But I have raised daughters. I was a teacher of many, many boys 20 some years ago, and I have been advocating for boys ever since. And I am a family coach, and I love doing this work with parents. I love talking to you. I love hearing from you. And Amy's going to introduce herself, but before she does, I have to say she and I share a love of pickleball. We are pretty much pickleball fanatics. So she's my pickleball friend and my colleague. Amy, take it away.
Happy to. So my name is Amy Lang and my company is called Birds and Bees and Kids. And I am a parenting and sexuality educator. And I got my start when I was in my early 20s and I was doing counseling, birth control, abortion, STI counseling with teenagers and adults. And I had assumed I was going to be the best sex talker when I had children. And it turns out that I was not. I thought my son Milo was going to touch his penis. And well, he was touching his penis and I thought he was going to tell me it felt good. And I had a total freak out and I was super surprised. And then that led me to learning how to talk with kids about the birds and the bees, sexuality, love, and relationships. And I also have a background as an adult educator, and I realized I could combine my two favorite things and help parents and adults talk with kids about sexuality, love, and relationships. And so that's what we're going to do today. I also have a podcast. It's called Just Say This, and I answer questions from parents. It's like a Q&A advice column style podcast, amongst other things. But let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to introduce you to our PowerPoint slides. We're going to be talking about how to have sex talks with your boys specifically. We're going to look at some boy-specific issues. And then that's me. And then Janet's going to be talking about boy communication, the best ways to communicate with your boys. You're just going to get a little taste of both of these things. And Janet's going to talk a little bit more about how you can learn more about talking to your boys, because it's not just the sex talk, right? It's not just the sex talk. So that's what we're doing. If you want to, and we're going to get to Q&A at the end, obviously. So we'll do some Q&A on recorded, and then we'll turn off the recording and hang around for extra Q&A, because sometimes people need a little privacy in that department or feel more private. I don't know. I don't want to be recorded sometimes when I have questions. So that is that. Janet.
Yeah. So our wish for you is to take a deep breath, relax a little bit. We'll be breathing throughout the webinar today, but our wish is for you to be easy with yourself. No matter if you felt like you haven't gotten things right in the past, you're here. That's awesome. And we want you to know that keeping those lines of communication open with your son is the most important thing. You're here for the long game, and you get to have a fresh start every single day.
I love that. So I'm up first. And so Janet said breathing, and here is your cue. I'll be showing my beautiful card that says breathe on the regular. So let's do that right now. Everybody stops breathing when I teach. So let's all take a big deep breath. You ready? Here we go. And do one more. This helps that thinky part of your brain come back online, settles your body. And so you will be seeing this beautiful piece of artwork again later. Well, I want to start with two really important concepts when it comes to talking to your kids about sex. So the first thing is this. Historically, we have been really working on this idea of prevention. When we're looking at sexuality education, we're really trying to prevent our kids from getting into trouble. And so lots of information about birth control and STI prevention. We're talking about consent and being safe and all of that. So we really have worked hard from this framework of prevention. And what really needs to happen is that we need to change our focus to preparation. We need to think about talking with our children about sexuality as preparation for engaging in this enormous, important part of life. And for me, when I was able to make that switch, I felt better about the conversations because our son's 21, and I wanted him to be prepared for this part of life. It is with us for our lifelong, right? We're sexual beings. We have relationships from the time we're born until the time we die. And so this idea of preparation versus prevention is super important to having comfortable, confident, and even inspired conversations with your kiddos. And prevention is part of this conversation. It doesn't go away, but it shouldn't be the focus. Because sexuality is a really great part of life. The more we talk about it, the more we know about it, the more your kids know about it, the better they do, the better they feel. And I think most of us want our kids to have an experience that's good when it comes to their own developing sexuality and then later on in life. So that's my little pre-talk. And I know y'all want to know when, how, all that stuff. And here we go. First of all, this is really important. You got to start early. You got to start early with the conversations. And the reason starting early is so important, and by early, I mean by 5, is so important because it establishes that you talk about this in your family, that it's an important part of life, that it's not taboo, that it's something that you're comfortable talking about, even though you might not be, that might come a little later, that you know about and you embrace. So starting early is better. The very first sex talk should be the correct names for their private body parts. Kids have a right to know the correct names for their privates. They are the only part of our body that we have special names for. So it's like, we don't call this is not my smeller, right? And that is not my hoo-ha. So when kids know the correct names for their private body parts, these are all the boy parts, essentially. There's more, but these are the basics. They are also safer from abuse because those folks look for kids who are clueless. When a child is able to say, my penis feels weird, and they say that in front of someone who might be a predator, that predator thinks, oh, this kid is, someone's talking to them. And they need to know about everybody's parts. And I just want to back up a minute. And somebody said, I've blown it. My kid's 11. Even though it's ideal to start at sooner rather than later, it does not matter when you start, as long as you start and step up and say, hey, this is an important part of life. We should have been talking about it more. Here we go. Nice thing about talking to an older kid is that they grasp the concepts more quickly. So you don't end up reading, a book 73 times like they do when they're 4. So don't worry about the age thing. That's ideal. Just get it rolling. The next thing that it's important to talk to your kids about is boundaries. So we're talking body boundaries, making sure they understand that they're the boss of their body. They have the right to say no to any kind of touch, and also that it's not okay for them to touch someone without their permission. Early on, these are planting the seeds of consent. So understanding that people have a right, including them, to the agency over their body. So really, really important in these early kind of first initial conversations. Next up, they got to know about sex and how babies are made. Starting with the usual way babies are made is a really easy way. It's scientific, right? Penis, vagina, sperm, egg, uterus, birth. It's all very scientific. And I know that after doing this for 16 years, that one of your initial things is like, oh my God, that's such grown-up information. But the thing to remember is that your kids don't know what you know. They don't know there's anything embarrassing or shameful or upsetting about having sex. They don't know that there's anything cool, amazing, super fun about it. They're usually pretty much a blank slate. I know most of your kids are an average age of around 11. That age is where they think sex is gross, which is awesome because we don't want 11-year-olds doing it, right? So starting out with baby making, talking about the different ways babies are made, different kinds of families. This is very, very beginning again conversations. And then what you're doing is you're planting seeds that we talk about this in our family. It's not taboo, it's important. And so you need to use the word sex, sexual intercourse, because they're going to hear those words. And then the next thing is, this tends to be a little tough for people. Gotta talk about pleasure. 99.99% of the time, we're having sex for fun, right? We're doing it because it feels good. We're acting, for those of us who have, you know, the kind of sex that can make babies, we're actively trying not to make babies. So introducing the idea of pleasure. Sex feels good. It feels good to people agree to do it. It feels good to their adult or their grown-up bodies. Sending that message, which tells them that sex is not for kids and it's for later in life, is really important. If just take a minute and imagine if you had an adult in your life that was saying, and maybe you lucked out and you did, who was saying, hey, you know, this is a really cool, important part of life, feels really great. And it's really important to be prepared for it and understand how it works and have, you know, lots of information. My guess is that your personal experience would be maybe different, better, and maybe you were lucky and did have this in your life. Most folks didn't. All right, a few more things. How's my time? Timekeeper.
Okay, you're good. 5.
So we're keeping time so we don't go on forever and ever. I could talk about this for 4 hours, so could Janet. So the next thing that you need to add in, so all of that stuff ideally should happen. They should know all that by the time they're 8, 9, 10. They should definitely know all of that. Puberty. They need to know about puberty before puberty starts. So average age of puberty start for boys is around 10 or 11. It depends on a variety of things, how much they weigh. Kids who are Black or kids of color tend to start puberty sooner, both boys and girls. And they need to know what's going to happen before it happens, because it can be very alarming to, you know, have a wet dream and not know. So many boys think that they wet the bed, and when they don't understand what's happening, that's a natural process of the body. And the other piece is that they need to know about the other people's bodies too, right? So they got to know what happens with the male body and what happens with the female body, because they may eventually have relationships with people with female bodies. They have friends who have female bodies, and it's just better for everyone that everyone knows what's happening with everybody else. So get the puberty thing out of the way started by 9. Should not be a surprise because, you know, as you may recall, puberty is tough enough, right? Next up, and these are conversations. So we're going to get to that puberty piece by around 9. They definitely need to also be having an idea of what makes a healthy romantic relationship. You can again plant seeds about healthy relationships using friendships, but talking about what a healthy romantic relationship looks like, what a healthy sexual relationship looks like. And so some of this is around decision making. Am I ready for sex? You know, when I have a partner, how will I know? What kinds of conversations do I need to have? How will I know if my relationship isn't safe or okay? So, or if I'm being a bad partner, right? So they need to understand this. One of the good things about the amount of media people are consuming these days is there are all kinds of examples of good relationships and not so good relationships. So you can use the world around you, frankly, for all of these conversations. There's always something. There's always something. And next up, in terms of just healthy relationships, is you have to talk to your kids about consent. We're going to talk about consent more deeply when we get into there's another section where we talk back and forth. So consent is key to having healthy relationships. You know, with people who have penises, they get lots of messages and information about consent and what it means to be a man and how they should be rolling. This has changed. So we'll talk about consent. It is key to healthy relationships. It's key for them being good, feeling good about themselves when they get into relationship time. All right, this is kind of out of order. You got to talk about sexual orientation and gender and different kinds of relationships. You know, you cannot tell by looking if your child is LGBTQ, and they need to know what that means. They need to know, different kinds of folks, different kinds of relationships, because it will help them feel better about themselves. And one of the things about LGBTQ kids is that they have the highest suicide rate of all adolescents. And the one thing that keeps them on par with everybody else, sorry, terrible conversation, is parental support. So this is something you might need to learn about. I know you live in the world, lots of talk about gender. There's lots and lots of information and support around this, but sexual orientation, different kinds of families, that should be happening again as a through line while you're having conversations with your boys. And this is, you know, I'm kind of piling on here, and this is layered, right? So we're building up, building up, building up. I need a euphemism or an acronym, but building up. And so by the time they get to middle school, so in the United States, that is 6th grade, they should know this, the basics of everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. They need to know about birth control, STIs. They need to know about different kinds of sex. They need to understand about crushes and have some ideas about dating and have some, you know, more detailed information about consent and all of that. And I know that sounds young. And the reason for that is the amount of information that is coming to our boys these days is it's a lot. And a whole lot of it is not healthy. To have 2 minutes. Is not healthy. And so we want our kids, you want your boys to have healthy information about sexuality. So once they get to middle school, you can talk about anything. It's terrific. No screening. Hey, no screening. Okay. Do this. Here we go. Play with me here. Here we go. As I said, I have some boy-specific things to talk about. The first one is this, potty talk. Oh my God, I did not know the word poop could be so hilarious until I had a 5-year-old. Boy, this is developmentally typical. We expect kids to find potty talk hilarious. As they get older, you're going to hear swearing, you're going to hear conversations about sex stuff. And again, this is all developmentally typical. So we expect this. One of the things about the potty talk is what we told Milo is that adults don't want to hear that. So if you want to talk like that, bedroom, bathroom, outside. So they're going to do it. And so it's important for them to know that, yeah, that's happening. And basically adults don't want to hear that. And then another message would be, if someone says something and you don't know what it means, please ask me. I'll help you out. You noticing me? Please ask me. I'll help you out. Really important message for your kids. Next up, masturbation. Pretty much every boy does it. If you got a penis, that thing's sticking out there, they figure out it feels good to touch it. Again, common, healthy, typical behavior. Sometimes kids figure out pretty early on that it feels good to do that. The message should be that something people do in private and alone. Boys need to know that this is completely normal. It's normal to do it. It's normal not to do it. And so giving them positive messages about learning about their own body is really important to their ultimate like sex lives. And I know, sorry, who wants to think about their 11-year-old sex life, but eventually they'll have one. So really confirming it's normal to do it, it's normal not to do it, and some parameters around it. And then the last thing, if you got a penis, you got to know about condoms. This is the only birth control for young people. They have to know about them. They have to know how to use them, why to use them. They prevent STIs. They prevent pregnancy if they're having someone who can have sex with someone who can get pregnant. Don't be afraid to talk about them, and don't be afraid to make them available to your child. We had in the bathroom, there was a drawer, it had condoms in them. Everybody knew, all of Milo's friends knew, and you know, he was mortified, but we don't care because I don't want any pregnancies before I'm ready to be a grandparent. I'm guessing you're probably in the same boat. So condoms, yes. Bottom line, don't be afraid to talk to them. This is a skill that you will learn how to do fortunately, we have Janet, who's going to give you some super good skills about talking with them, because it's the communication with them that is absolutely key. And she's got all the tricks to make it easier. Well, you only get a handful, but tricks. Okay.
A few today, but they're practical and you're going to be able to use them. Amy, let's have that breathe card again.
Oh, right. Of course, I put it in my pile. Sorry. One moment, please.
And we can all breathe without the card, you know.
Yeah, but it's more fun when you have a cue. Here we go.
More fun with the card. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the thing you have to remember. And what I always love Amy has said is go ahead and tell your kid, this feels awkward. This feels uncomfortable. It's okay. And that will ease things with your boy. But what I'm going to tell you about today is how to talk with him. And this is about the sex talks, but it's about everything, the easy things. Hey, do your homework, do the chores, those kinds of things. This is going to help you connect with him, because that is the bottom line, connecting with him. And added bonus, everything I tell you works with men too. And, you know, it's more about just communicating with another person, because as women, as humans do, we have our own unique way of interacting with the world. We have our own style. And when we get in trouble with our boys, it's because they often don't operate the way we do. And so in the decades that I've been working with parents, I hear frustrations, the same ones over and over. Your feelings get hurt because he won't talk to you. Your bids for connection fall on deaf ears. He ignores you. He gets mad when he feels like you're nagging him constantly. Do you feel like you spend a lot of time nagging? He doesn't like it. And I know that you don't like it either. And there's that place of just wishing he would just do what we ask him to do when we ask him to do it. On our time, not his. And then we wonder why he retreats to his room, or he picks up his device and tunes you out, or why you only get a one-word answer, which truthfully might just be a grunt. Really and truly. If you haven't gotten to that yet, you will. So, are you ready to revolutionize the way you talk with your son? Put it in the chat. Yes, please. These tips will help you. Again, as I said, talk about the easy things, talk about the usual things day to day, but they are so going to help you talk about these uncomfortable, awkward things. The first time you say masturbation or condoms to your son, it's going to feel a little dicey for you. So trust me, these are going to be pretty easy. So number one, you already know how active your son is. He moves all the time, likely. And, in school, we have this adage, sit still, listen, and learn, which actually goes against everything pretty much every boy on the planet is about. He needs to move. He needs to move his body. When he moves his body, his brain is in motion. When he stops moving his body, his brain actually goes into a rest state. So you want him moving. When he's fidgeting, when he's swinging his leg, when he's bouncing in the chair, he's actually awake and ready to learn and ready to listen. And yes, it might drive you crazy. So you have to figure out how to manage that. But accepting it inwardly as the parents can kind of already start to ease that for you. So if you want him to talk with you, it's best if he's moving his body at the same time. I had dinner with a friend's son, with a friend's family, and her 11-year-old didn't say a word the entire time through dinner. And he knows me. It wasn't like I was a stranger, but she, wise mama that she is, has a mini trampoline in the living room, which was right next to their dining room table. And the 11-year-old finished dinner, went in, started jumping on the trampoline, and would not stop talking. So moving and talking is the key. if he needs to settle down, if you need him to, go into grandma's house and be able to keep his body a little under control, or he needs to do his homework or sit at dinner, make sure that he's had some movement beforehand. And it's pretty good if you can actually write down how much movement he gets in the day. You need to know how much he's able to move at school. And just keep a journal for a couple of days. You might be surprised that he actually doesn't get as much movement as you think he does. One really wise family before the holidays this year, they decided that before they had dinner at grandma's house, the dads took all of the cousins to the park, and all of the cousins had about an hour at the park before they had to come into the hubbub of the holiday meal. So keep that in mind. Stop off at the park, get some movement in before school starts. Your teachers will really be grateful for that. So always ask yourself, how much has he moved his body today? All right, number 2. Let's take a deep breath in between. Yeah. Do you talk a lot? Do you feel like you're asking a lot of questions? Do you make a lot of requests of your son? Is your communication with him mostly transactional? Do this, don't do that. Have you done your homework? Does he respond the way you'd like him to? I know because you've told me that you yearn to have deep conversations with your sons. And you're lucky if you get those monologues about Fortnite or Minecraft, or you might just be in the place of getting one-word answers or goals, or more frustrating, the silent. So here is you. And this is especially for moms, gotta say, you got to use fewer words. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but using fewer words is going to allow him to hear what you're saying. You can think of it as talking in bullet points. Not all the detail and not very many bullet points, just a few bullet points. So what's happening for him, what's going on in his brain is that he processes language more slowly. And if he's young, if he's up to age 7, he processes even slower. Adults talk at about 170 words per minute, and the young child processes words at about 125 words per minute. So you are just like flooding his brain with all of your words. So slow down, insert pauses every now and then, and recognize that when you ask him a question, he might not answer like that. You've got to give him a little time to find the words, figure out what you're asking about, and be able to respond. Resist the urge to fill in the silence. We tend to do that. I've seen teachers do this time and time again. When it's quiet, they start talking, the room goes a little crazy again. So give him time to find his words. And guess what? If he's moving, he's going to find the words more easily. He's easily overwhelmed at school by all of the talking and processing. So that might show up as being tired or unfocused or cranky when he gets out of school. And what do we do as parents? Every parent has done this. You see your kid after school. What did you do today? Who did you talk to? What do you have for homework? And we have this barrage of questions. I challenge you, again, use fewer words. Greet him, say hi, give him a snack, and then stop talking. Just let his brain rest, just have that time. And later in the day, you're going to get more of what happened in school that day. So resist the urge to ask him right after school. Give his brain a chance to rest. So here's what you can start doing right now. Talk in bullet points. Do something together while you're talking, walking and talking, do a puzzle, wash the dishes, whatever it might be, do something together. Be okay with his shorter bursts of conversation. He's not going to sit down and dialogue with you for, 10 or 15 minutes. It might be a minute here and a minute there. And this is, when you're bringing up Amy's topics, we'll call it that, you probably will just have really short bursts of conversation. And then remember not to fill the silence. Think of just having companionable silence together. All right, so now you're moving. Let's take a deep breath again. Amy, got to breathe. Yeah. So now you're moving and you're using fewer words. This number 3 can be challenging for many parents because in our culture, we value this. And likely we've all been raised with being told, look at me when I'm talking to you. Definitely, I've said it, I've heard it said, look at me when I'm talking to you. We value eye contact. It feels good, especially for females. We get a hit of oxytocin with that eye contact, not so much for boys. So eye contact for many boys, and check this out with the men in your world. Ask them. Eye contact can feel like a threat. It can feel super uncomfortable. And if he feels uncomfortable and he feels a bit threatened, his brain has stopped working. So our challenge is being okay if he doesn't look at you when you're talking or when he's talking. He can acknowledge he's heard, do a high five together, do an elbow bump. He likely will hear you better if he doesn't have to look at you. So now you've got less eye contact, be okay with it. He can hear you. And now you've got the recipe for talking with him in the way that he can be more comfortable with movement, with using fewer words, with less eye contact. And finally, what Amy and I have discovered separately and together is that boys generally talk to their moms about their hearts and their dads about their parts. And, if it's an awkward topic like we're talking about today, I also advise you to give him a heads up. Hey, honey, after school today, we're going to talk about, condoms, for instance. And of course, then he's going to say something like, ooh, or I already know all about that. So then what, Amy? What do we say?
Well, we say, yeah, I know, I get it. You're uncomfortable and, I don't know what you know, so I'm going to tell you some things. And then they tend to do better. You can also just say, I need to talk to you about a sex thing and not be so specific. We can do it now. We can do it later. They always say later, which is nice for you because you can plan. You need to be ready to roll. But yeah, it's okay to say like, yeah, I get it. You're uncomfortable, but we're still going to do this because it is not his job to sex educate himself. That is your job, which means everybody's going to feel uncomfortable. I do just want to add thing about the hearts and parts thing. If you're a single parent and you don't have, you're a dad raising a boy on your own, and so that hearts thing isn't happening, it doesn't matter. Just because we know that, because, studies, that does not mean that's what kids are going to get. And that does not mean that you have to have that set up. So if you're a woman and you're parenting alone, just say, I ain't got your parts, but we'll figure it out, and just acknowledge that. And at the end of the day, every kiddo needs at least one trustworthy adult that they can talk to about this. And so, yeah, don't get hung up in the hearts and parts thing. So yes, anyway, that's that. Yeah, I love those tips. I kind of had, Milo's 21. I kind of knew that. Some of it was intuitive, but I really wish that I had been more like top of mind, and all these people that are having like light bulb moment. It's a good thing.
And the thing is, it's, it's the person in the grocery store, it's your coworker, it's everyone. When we can adjust how we approach communication, it all changes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Ready? Let's do a big breathe because we're going to talk about some hard stuff. Here we go. All right. So we, obviously we wanted to each teach our expertise, but there are these places where Janet and our work really comes together, and it's really more around some of the harder topics and just the cultural messages that boys get around sexuality and gender, right? What it means to be a man and that kind of thing. And so I was wondering, Janet, like, what do you notice in terms of cultural messages for boys as they're growing up about like what I just talked about? And then we'll come back to the stuff.
Yeah. Well, it starts early. I mean, they are getting messages from the people around them, even as, preschoolers, kindergartners. They're getting, when they start preschool, they really enter a new world of getting the messages from their peers. So your boy may have been just like,
oh, sorry, I muted you. Can you unmute yourself? Janet, that there are people.
I'll just wave my hands around. So your boy might be like, I want to wear that pink tutu, and you're fine with it. And then he gets to preschool or kindergarten, and suddenly it all changes. So the messages start early. You might be, grandpa might be in the old school of boys don't cry, boys, man up, toughen up. So it starts early, and you need to be aware of it because you are the ones that can counteract these messages.
Yeah. And I think people too, right, these days there's so much conversation about gender that with young kids, there's a period of exploration for both genders. Like boys wonder, like, what's it like to be a girl? What's it like to, what's it like to be a boy? What do I like? What do I not like? And letting them explore that and experience that is really important. And, I think that that's one of the big things for boys is this messages about don't be girly all the way, right? Like all the things we associate with girls and women. And if we think about their relationships, their romantic relationships and their sexual relationships, they need to be more tender and willing to talk about their feelings and comfortable asking hard questions and understanding, really like the different sexualities and that sort of thing. We live in a very heterosexist, culture, and a patriarchal, it does not help our boys at all. At all. It sets them back and it makes life hard for them. And it's a bummer.
Yeah. And part of the conversation, Amy's got these things that you need to talk about, and woven into that always is, how are you talking about feelings? How are you talking about emotions? Our boys don't necessarily come with the range of words matched to feelings, and we have to give them that. We have to be super explicit about that. Oh, this happened. Did you feel this way? Where did you feel it in your body? It's all about helping him build that emotional vocabulary. Super important.
Yeah, I love that. And to help them and to do it yourself and to say, oh, I'm having this feeling. I feel like my tummy feels blah and I'm feeling really angry. That's one of the ways I know. So talking about your feelings and demonstrating how that happens. And, I think that, here comes the fun part of our time together. So I think that these cultural messages, of course, extend into sex and sexuality. And, I touched on this before, but for men and boys and everybody, we talked about consent. And unfortunately, our culture tells boys that they still need to be the aggressor and they need to go for it. And, and they need to, they gotta read the signs. And if she looks like she wants, and usually it's going for heterosexual relationships, if she looks like she wants it, then she does. So being really clear about consent. And I kind of alluded to this, but we start with just consent in general, planting seeds around consent, which means agreement. And then we move into sexual consent and consent in relationships. So the old paradigm was no means no. And we don't say that anymore because you can say, I'll just talk. I said, no, yes. many times. And I just went along. So the new paradigm is yes means yes. So you want your boys to understand, everybody, but you want your boys to understand that they want a clear yes from their partner, whether it's holding hands or hugging or making out or over the shirt or under the shirt or any kind of, especially physical contact, is that they need to say yes. Their partner needs to say yes clearly. And you need to help them understand that. And of course, the no needs to be respected as well. So if someone says no, it's an instant no, and you're not insistent. That teaches, that's teaching respect, right? That's respectful. So we need to talk about respect in relationships and that sort of thing. And this goes for any kind of romantic relationship, right? And it extends to things like texting and, like make sure your boys don't understand that texting is 65 times a day is not a yes. And the other way, right? Like the girl's texting 7,000 times a day, your child has a right to say, no, stop. And that's also a sign of not a healthy relationship. Throw that in there. Yeah. So that was one of the big things we want to talk about. Do you want to add anything about the consent piece?
Well, I love with younger kids, this is little kids in rough housing and just all of that, messing around, wrestling, add the word freeze. Add the word freeze. So you're wrestling and then freeze. Like we used to play freeze tag, right? This is helping them recognize their body, have some self-regulation. This works not only for, sexual consent later on, but this is an opportunity for them to practice just stopping. So yes. Practice freeze, make it fun.
Yeah, I love that. And somebody's noting that about the ask first rule. So this is another seed of consent, which is in terms of child safety, is to ask first before you touch a child, pick them up, hug them. That gives them the opportunity to say no and teaches them that this is how safe adults roll, right? Safe adults don't just touch a kid against their will. I mean, imagine if someone just like comes in for the hug and you're like, good God, but you do it anyway. Imagine you're 6. Right? We've been socialized to go for that. We need to help our kids understand they have the right to say no. So establishing this ask first rule is really important. And we're going to send you resources for a lot of this when later when we get to replay time. So we get the recording done. So yeah, thank you for these questions. All right.
We got to talk about porn.
No, let's breathe.
Yeah, better breathe first.
We didn't want to talk about porn, but we have to. And we have to because your boy, if he hasn't already seen it, he will see it 100% guaranteed before he graduates from high school, before he turns 18. It is
like before middle school or in middle school.
Yeah, average age is 9. That's average age of first exposure worldwide. That is so young. That is 4th grade. And it doesn't happen on purpose. It happens accidentally. They Google big boobs because they're curious, because you would have been Googling all the things, right? You would have. They Google all the things. And the problem with the porn exposure, aside from the graphicness and all of that, is the impact on their sense of what it means to be a sexual person, what it means to be a person with a penis having sex. They think that porn is how you do sex. Teenagers use porn for sex ed. And I know you don't want to hear this. I also know that you're in your head, you might be thinking, oh, my child would never. Sorry, your child will. Like your child.
Well, and they will see, they will Google the things. I mean, we looked at the dictionary, right? But it's also going to come to them. They might not even be seeking it out. So
absolutely. Absolutely. So I just had a consultation with a mom whose son's friends were showing him porn on their phones. And it is terrible. And so it might not be, and so anyway, I could go on and on, but I just want to say this about the impact on them. They are seeing bodies and frankly, penises that are completely unrealistic. Nobody's penis is that big. Average is 5.5 inches. Nobody's penis is that big. People have pubic hair. Nobody does those things, makes those sounds. That is not what real sex looks like. So that's the first thing. They're getting this idea of what it means to be a sexual person. The next thing is that it's teaching them, it makes them feel really insecure about who they are as they're growing up and as they're developing their body. And it's like, what is wrong with me? What is this hair on me? Another reason to talk about pubic hair and puberty early. They also, it skews their experience with women and how they see women. They're more likely to sexualize them, seeing them as an object. It's just bad on multiple levels. And, you know, the reason we have to talk about it is because it has a huge impact on who they are as a sexual person. And if you are talking with them about sex openly, healthy sexuality, if you're using monitoring and filtering and protecting them as much as you possibly can, they're going to do better. They're going to feel better when they see it. And when you open the door to these conversations, they're going to be way more likely to talk to you about it. And they need to. It's confusing and scary and weird. And that's not what you want them to think about sex, right? You want them to think it's a great, wonderful, positive part of life that you need to be prepared for. We will send you, some resources to help with this, but we just had to talk about it. Is there anything you'd like to add other than this? I'll just do this.
I think breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, you know, I think that having these conversations with your son about sex are so important and so helpful to them as they grow and change and become men. And we want our kids to be really healthy, happy grown-ups, right? But what we've just done here and the little bit of conversation Janet has offered is just not enough to create that real closeness and easy open communication with your son in general. So would it be okay if she just tells us a little bit about her amazing Decode Your Boy program? I wish that has been around 5 years ago.
I know. Sorry, Amy, didn't have that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So
let's do that. And then when we're done, when Janet finishes chatting about this, then we'll go back to Q&A.
Yeah. So everybody breathe.
Oh yeah, here, we'll just do this the entire time. I'll just be like this.
Yeah. So you have learned a lot already today. It's a lot to take in. And of course, as Amy said, there's always more to learn. And then you think you've got it, and lo and behold, your boy grows and changes and becomes, prepubescent, pubescent, and then, all of a sudden he's 16 and you're like, what happened? How did this go so fast? And look around here today, you are not alone. We all want a more connected, more real relationship with our boys. So as Amy said, I'm going to take a couple minutes to tell you how you can make all the difference in your relationship with your son and experience those extraordinary openings that happen when you're on his page rather than expecting him to be on yours. I call it Decoding Your Boy, less yelling, more connecting. I've designed this program after listening to parents for 20 years telling me your struggles with these specific topics, Amy's topic of how to have the talk, but screen time and anger and siblings and school. These monthly themes provide the platform to a deeper understanding of your son as we talk about all these things that you wonder about, that you lose sleep worrying about. This program is unique. I have designed this to be fun for me. I love interacting directly with you, and there is no other program like it out there. It allows you to stay connected with me, not through videos or articles, but in real time, and to stay connected with a community of parents for an entire year. Twice each month, you have my undivided attention for live coaching, teaching, connecting with other parents. This is the place where I answer your most pressing, challenging questions. I believe that we're all longing for more connection. You weren't meant to do this parenting journey alone. And that's why I created this powerful community of direct support. It raises your confidence, and that means you, your son, and your family benefit. Here's how it works.
Hey, sorry, Janet, can you mute yourselves? Thank you. Sorry, Janet, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I couldn't hear
That's
you.
okay. So in the Decoding Your Boy program, we meet 24 times during 4 times. You pay only $4.95 for the entire year or spread payments over 5 months. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, you'll have access to all the previous sessions and you can join anytime. Oops, let's see. You get the info and help you need when you need it. And that means you're ready and able to forge that deeper relationship with your son, the one you're longing for and that you both deserve. Are you ready to have less eye rolling, fewer one-word answers, meltdowns, or the silent treatment? Then join me to learn how to decode your boy and connect with him in his way, in his comfort zone. Less yelling, more connecting. That's what this parenting journey is supposed to be about. Amy's putting the link in the chat and it will be included when we send you the replay. I look forward to getting to know you over the next year in Decoding Your Boy.
So can you give like an example of what a session would look like, just like for the like a general one, what it would look like, and then we'll get to Q&A. I'm just curious because
we meet on the 1st and 15th of every month, just like that. 1st and 15th, 1 o'clock, doesn't change. And we've already had several months under our belt, so you'll have those archives. In January, we talked about how to get him to listen the first time. So the first session of the month, I do some teaching at the beginning and we have some Q&A. We talk about boy communication. We talk about the topic, and then you can send me your questions in between. Cool. Second session is pure coaching. Okay. I am asking you what's going on. We're coaching on the spot, and it's super fun and really valuable because you're in it and you're getting real-time direct access to me. So,
and there's nothing better than live coaching. I mean, because they ask questions that you think, oh, hey, didn't even occur to me. And there's always something there, even when it seems like the question is like, I've got that. And then suddenly you're getting all this extra information.
Well, and the beautiful thing that happens is one person's question is that other mom's like, oh, I didn't remember I even needed to know that or ask that. Yeah. So it becomes learning for everyone.
Oh yeah, I'm envious. I mean, I feel like I'm cooked. I could take it for Carrie, my husband. Yeah, no, cool. Okay, thank you.
For moms and dads too, just to say it's not just a mom program. I have dads in the program already, and it's great to have their insight and perspective there.
Yeah, for sure. Does anybody have any other questions about the decoding? I see there's a couple in here. How to get him to listen, starting with an easy topic. It's funny. And here's the link again. Check it out. Oh.
Say it again.
Okay.
Put it in your fridge.
I'm going to unmute everyone again, and then Janet, will you unmute yourself?
Oh, sorry, I said it. You were in your phone.
All right. Look at us go. All right. Shall we do Q&A time?
Yeah, let's take a couple minutes, and at the top of the hour, we'll turn off the recording and
a Pacific time, EB.
Pacific time, yeah.
In Bend, yeah, Pacific time. Okay, questions about the communicating with boys business or the sex talky business. Here we go. Oh, does Circle work better than Bark? We used Custodio first and now Bark. So she's asking about monitoring and filtering. So right now I'm recommending Bark or Circle. I'm going to send you a link so you can check them out. Monitoring is watching where they're going. Filtering is like blocking what they can look for. Required. It's the seatbelt of the internet. I cannot tell you enough how important that is. And it depends. They have they do different things. But anything is better than nothing. If you're out of the US, Custodio, and again, we're going to send the links for that. So is the only one that I know of that works outside of the US. So yeah, thanks for asking about that. I feel like there were some questions back up at the top. Lots of thank yous. Oh, what age you recommend talking about porn? See, this is why we shouldn't talk about it. Just kidding. You need to introduce the idea that kids can see naked videos of naked people online by 5. If they're online, they need to know, like straight up. And then when they know about sex, you can say, and there are people having sex and it's not for kids. It's not okay for kids to look at this. You know, it's really not, their hearts, minds, and bodies aren't ready to see something like this. And then just get more graphic, like more, not graphic, but just more detailed as they get older. You don't talk about it once, you talk about it consistently, right? Because as Janet said, they see it outside, out of your control, control.
Yeah. Emily asks about how do you encourage them not to fall for peer pressure? This is a tough one, and we're talking about this all the time in Decoding Your Boy, and it's a necessary conversation. It's about building resilience, and it's also, and one thing I appreciate about Amy so much is she gives the specific strategies to you know, what do you say? How do you get yourself out of a situation? If your friend is showing you porn on his phone, Amy, what do you say?
There's a variety of things they can say. Oh, my parent will kill me if they know I've seen this. That's a good one. Another really good tactic is for them to say, oh God, whatever, dude. I think looking at porn is a solo activity. That's my favorite. A little shame, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then the other one is to say, oh yeah, I've seen that. Have you seen this? And have a specific like funny video link that they can just take them to. And yeah, so you need to give them some skills, like words and things to do instead of saying, don't look at that. Because peer pressure is hard. And there's all kinds of peer pressure, right? There's all kinds of peer pressure. So
body image, so much to talk about for our boys. Question is, when will the recording be available? Give us a chance to catch our breath. We'll get that to you later today. Definitely coming out for you.
Yeah, cool. Question, could you please speak to the question of how the emphasis on consent has in some ways resulted in a focus on pleasure for men, boys because of porn and not for both partners? I haven't noticed that. Maybe I'm not understanding the question. I think the emphasis on resulted in the focus on pleasure for men and boys because of porn and not for both partners. That's not I don't think that's happening. And maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying, because the emphasis on consent is about agreeing. I guess there's coercive consent, right? Which is you convince your partner to say, I mean, everybody has anal sex in porn. Don't know if you knew that. Convincing your partner to do that because it's happening in porn, and that would be more about their pleasure. But that's coercion. That's not affirmative consent. Maybe, will you say more?
Well, that's a big, long question. I think you tapped into that pretty well.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
Get a couple more questions before we turn off the recording. So again, Decoding Your Boy, love to have you join this year-long program and be side by side with me raising your boy. And we will send the link in the replay along with resources. We so appreciate you being here and love that you've given us an hour of your time from Australia and Canada and India and all over the world. Love, love, love that. And the thing is, you're doing the work. You are out there on, boots on the ground, raising our boys to be caring, healthy men. And the world needs you to do that well. We need you to do that. So, Amy, I think we'll say thanks and let people go, but we'll turn the recording off and we'll hang around if you want to ask more questions.
And you've got this.
Yes, we got this. And one of the questions, I think this is super important, was asked, can I read a book? Can we start with books? And Amy's got great books for you to buy. And that's a great way to start the conversation. So look for follow-up emails. You'll get the replay, you'll get the decoding link and Amy's resources too. Thanks so much, everyone, for being
Thank you.
here.